Could we get one more Beast Beneath the Boards?
Beast Beneath the Boards.
Welcome back to our ongoing coverage of House of the Dragon. We're here today to talk about Season 2, Episode 6, which is called Smallfolk. As ever, I am Cam, and I'm joined by my two wonderful co-hosts for this series, Maggie.
Hello.
And Tristan.
And Helena.
And Helena's also here.
And Tristan's here,
Tristan, I
of
think you
course.
should say all of your points in Helena's voice.
This episode, Smallfolk, I think we all really liked, but there's a little bit of a preamble before we get into it. It's sort of the inverse of the preamble we gave last week. We're getting whiplash from this season. The seesaw continues to flip-flop. I've got more metaphors. Don't you worry.
I'm trying to picture a seesaw flip-flopping, and it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay.
But I'm with you.
All right, you want to start over?
No, I'm good.
I've just got the image of a seesaw in like Jesus sandals right now.
Perfect.
So that's
The seesaw continues, but this time we're in luck, and we're shooting right back up to the high-quality bar of episodes 3 and 4. And even though I loved every single scene of this episode, I still think the legacy of this season is developing to be one of inconsistency. We've got 3 out of 6 that are great so far, which is... It's good, but it's, a failing grade. So this one is all about the writing. Our whole discussion about last week's episode was about the permeating silence. And this episode, by contrast, wouldn't you know, is all about good dialogue.
Yep.
So we have to praise the fantastic writer of this episode, Eileen Shim, who also, by no coincidence, wrote the best episode of last season, which was episode 8, which charted the most punishing moments of Viserys' decline and eventual death. And just to broad brush it, this episode has memorable lines. It has that bantering, that verbal jousting that, Tristan, you always
exactly
pinpoint.
what we've been begging for.
Yeah, it's got the meaningful discussions, characterization. It's got shocking and grounded developments. I mean, we've got 2 non-clunky propaganda pieces. That guy being roasted by the dragon, I believe that sacrifice, that death.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was heartbreaking. I genuinely felt fear for Alicent and Helena during the riots. I felt sympathy for Alicent and her brother Gwaine talking about their childhoods. But most importantly, and we've talked about this before, most importantly, this episode had intriguing setup. The way it established that relationship between Sea Smoke and Adam was fantastic. And the reason I wanted to preview it this way is because I'm starting to feel torn through this season, where I have these lingering feelings that even the great episodes are kind of undermined by the other ones. So to throw this question to you guys, if we all agree that this episode is another return to form, are you left excited for the next episode or kind of wary?
That's a great question. I think only because we're nearing the end of the season, I'm excited because the trend seems to be, I mean, this episode's maybe a bit of an exception, but the trend seems to be that the show is really good when lots of stuff is happening, and when we're in downtime, the show doesn't know what to do with itself and it kind of falters. So because we're nearing the end of the season, things have to ramp up and big things have to happen, then I'm hopeful and excited. I also feel like even if like episode 7 or 8 end up being less, exciting than the other, I still think we haven't dipped down in the plot enough to have a like just everybody sitting sadly staring out the window kind of episode. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful too. I mean, we have seen the Game of Thrones quality in several of these episodes, so all hope is not lost. Just the legacy of this season is going to be one of sort of vacillating, sort of yo-yoing week to week, and really it's a tale of 2 ropes at this point for this season, right? It's either a bungee cord or it's a noose, right? I can't tell if when we're bouncing back up, that's what's supposed to happen, or if we've already broken our neck and this is just the last death rattle before it just continues to be bad. For season 2, at least, right? There's so many different plot threads that are laid down and so much potential, especially with this episode, right? You could have just not had episode 5 and just done this episode, and I think like the momentum from episode 4 would have carried into 6 and you could have kept going.
You're 100% right.
Honest to God, do not know what was accomplished with the previous episode for now, because this one did everything the other one didn't. It showed us things. It told us things. It wasn't just quiet. It turns out you don't watch a TV show to see people sit there and not fucking say anything or do anything. I don't know. Anyway, that's my axe to grind with the last episode. And it's just irritating because you can see the potential, and lo and behold, they did it right now.
Absolutely.
right? They showed us what they're capable of, and for that reason, I'm very optimistic about the remainder of this show.
I'm so with you. I really think you could just delete episode 5 and nothing would change except that the show gets better, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, Maggie, you were sort of foregrounding something that I thought was interesting there, talking about the downtime episodes and sort of the pattern of big episode and then cool down episode. But the episodes of people sitting around twirling mustaches and talking, that is what I watch the show for. The battle episodes are a rare treat, but that's not what I show up for. I show up for episodes like this.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I don't have a problem with downtime episodes. I like that can be done really well. And this episode proves that exactly. So my main thing earlier is saying that there's less room for error, I think, now that we're nearing the end of the season, where they're going to really put their trust in the best writers and the best directors to really carry the season to its end. But you're right, Kim, this episode 6, is a demonstration of a good downtime episode, a good character focused, brooding setup episode, which is what last episode tried to do and did not achieve.
Yeah, in video game parlance, last episode was you've already done all the side quests and all the main quests, and you're just walking around continuing to try to talk to people, only there's no new dialogue options.
And the same
in this one, and so you're not getting any cutscenes or anything. You're just bouncing around, just trying to dig for anything that you might have missed. And this episode is okay, we did the story quest again, so we get the cool cutscenes that they actually put money into. That's the best way to describe that. And I hate myself whenever I waste my time doing that. So I'm irritated at the House of the Dragon's writers for making me do that.
Absolutely, yeah, because you can choose to do extra side quests and slow down the pace of the story if you want to. But you're at their mercy of showrunners in TV, so you should keep a more constant pace. Yeah. I think in a just world, this would be the mid-season finale. I think you'd collapse episode 1 and 2 into one good episode, and pretty much, like you guys are saying, delete episode 5. And I think then we would have had a great pace for this season. But I want to stay in this zoomed-out frame for a couple more questions, because we're getting the shape of this season. We've seen 6 out of 8, and we imagine we've got some big stuff coming. So those battle episodes are usually one-off. Whatever sort of explosive finale we're going to have, we've gotten most of the meat of the season so far. So I want to zoom out to look at this whole second season. It seems like, now that we've seen most of it, the story of season 2 of House of the Dragon is this gathering storm in the Riverlands. And that reminds me forcibly, and it doesn't feel like a coincidence, it reminds me forcibly of the second season of Game of Thrones, with that long road to Blackwater and the gathering storm of each side. The question to you guys is, I loved season 2 of Game of Thrones because I got that dug-in character development along the way. I knew there'd be a payoff at the end. I didn't know it would be that big with green fire and all this crazy stuff. But do you think it's a fair comparison? And do you think it is a favorable comparison?
No and no. I mean, I think I've always had the opinion, since we got a couple episodes into the first season of House of the Dragon, is that this show, you can't fairly compare this show to Game of Thrones. I mean, even to season 8 Game of Thrones, because that's a totally different thing. And just peak Game of Thrones, seasons 1 through 5, maybe 6, are so good.
4.
Yeah. Okay, I think 5 was pretty good. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
They're so good and on a different level that this, I don't think, has ever achieved that. It's had moments where it feels like Game of Thrones, but I've never felt like this show is quite as good, and I've accepted that. I accepted that a long time ago, and I've made my peace with it. But when this show, I still know this show can be very, very good, and I appreciate when it is, but I don't think it's fair to compare. I mean, it's hard because I know what is supposed to happen, plot-wise in this show, because I've read the book, but I just don't think it's going to achieve something like the end of season 2 of Game of Thrones, especially because we haven't had the amazing character build-up that season 2 accomplished in Game of Thrones. So I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's tough. It's tough to it puts the show in a hard position to make that comparison. But they kind of put themselves in that position by having a very similar arc, right? At least in terms of both sides are building up to a conflict in one region.
Also, both season 2s, it's who's going to be on the throne? That's the whole, I mean, it's the Game of Thrones, but it's so literal in season 2 of Game of Thrones, and it is here as well.
But I mean, I think they should try to stay away from those kinds of comparisons as much as they can, because just going by the source material, I mean, there's just not as much meat on the bones of the outline that they've received, or the outline that is the Fire and Blood book. And that's sort of the trap that the latter seasons of Game of Thrones had, is that they knew the big points that were supposed to occur, but they had to sort of fill in the gaps themselves. And it's a testament to the prowess of George R.R. Martin's writing. Whenever you've got something that's fully fleshed out and nuanced, you translate that onto the big screen, you really can get what he was trying to say, and it comes across well. Versus here, you've just got the demo version, right? You can't get into as deep. You can't get into those characters' heads as deeply as you could in Game of Thrones, because they just haven't been created to have that depth.
I see your points, and I've seen a lot of these sort of defenses, and I totally sympathize with them. But to play devil's advocate for a second, I don't think the show itself shies away from those comparisons in the way they've chosen to tell and parse out this story. I think season 1, the arc of Ned Stark and his tragic death at the end of that, I think it's sort of what they were doing with Viserys in the first season of House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And throwing things into turmoil. We talked about this in the Fire and Blood episodes over on Patreon, going through the source material for House of the Dragon here. I thought all of this stuff could have been half of season 2. I don't think you needed to stretch it out to be like Blackwater, because I didn't think there was enough meat on the bones. But at what point...
I was with you. I thought that, we were going to get this cut in half.
But at what point is it fair to compare two shows within the same franchise that have the same theme music? Oh, but this one has a lot more budget and gets 2 years between every season. At some point, the comparison, we have to be able to talk about the comparisons.
Sure, yeah. It's more that, like, I don't think it's fair in that I've already decided they're never going to be equal, and, like, there's no point. Like, not that it's unfair to the show itself. It's like they should be holding themselves to a higher standard, and they just aren't meeting it.
I guess what I mean is the unfairness stems from this show needs House of the Dragon needs to understand where the strengths of the story that it's trying to tell lie. So they shouldn't be trying to play the exact same game that Game of Thrones did. I mean, I agree with you. Whenever I sit down to watch this, or whenever I remind Alexandra, my fiance, shout out, I'll say Game of Thrones is about to start. So, it is that in my heart and soul. They need to stand on its own too. And so the strengths that they've got are these big highlight events. So they have the ability to go faster or to cut out the filler. But I guess the big drawback of corporate America running TV shows like this is that you need to have 5, 6, 7 seasons of a show, and there's not enough material for this point in time with these actors that everybody loves to really put forth a serviceable 4 or 5 seasons. So they have to just pad it out the stats a little bit to keep people coming back for. And so that's like the weird cynical part of it. So while I agree that they sort of invite the comparison, I think that is a bit of a mistake in my mind, because they can't tell the story of the show exactly the same way that Game of Thrones did, but they can hit a lot of the high points that Game of Thrones did.
Sure, and there is a clumsiness, I think, that Game of Thrones, again, the people who signed up to work on Game of Thrones were signing up for an adaptation. When they got past George R. R. Martin, I have all the sympathy in the world for them, because they did not sign up to create the end of the story and test run it. So I don't judge them on anything after basically season 5. I don't think that's fair, but I think House of the Dragon is constantly shooting itself in the foot. I mean, they're still running polls on social media. They're still doing marketing about Team Green and Team Black. We've gone through that ad nauseum. We won't even retread that, but I think that sets up dog shit expectations. So 2 more questions as we wrap up this sort of zoomed out view of the season before we get into some fun nitty gritty. We had a poll question here. Going into episode 7, who are you most worried for? We're trying to look at the season of the whole and check in on our characters, see who we're worried for. And we've got Rhaenyra, Aegon, and Alicent.
I'm going to share what our audience thinks first. So our audience said 14% of them are worried for Rhaenyra. 41% are worried for Aegon, and 45% are worried for Alicent. So a pretty even split between Aegon and Alicent. A couple.
You see how popular Aegon is?
I know.
Called this episode 1.
For real. I was saying to Cam while we were watching last night, I was like, last night, I was so sad that Aegon is like incapacitated because I love watching him on screen, and
I know.
I
it's
love
such
that
a
character.
shame.
It's
but I like
such a
that
bummer.
we get to keep him.
But yeah, so people are pretty nervous about both Aegon and Alicent's safety, pretty evenly split. So that's interesting to see.
What was your read on this? Did you guys answer the poll? What do you think?
Well, it's not fair because I know things
you can
that
completely
happen.
ignore that.
Yeah, I mean, based on this episode, I'd be pretty worried about Aegon. He doesn't seem to be doing so good.
Me, being a book heathen, I do not know what actually happens next. So for me, I'm probably most worried about Alicent because they can't just, I mean, yes, Aegon is in a vulnerable position where if somebody killed him, it would look like he just died from his wounds. So on the one hand, yes. I'm more nervous for Alicent because she's not really going to have any friends at court anymore. Can't trust her own children even.
Nope.
Who's going to be there for her? Her father, who was her staunchest ally, is, AWOL. Right now and is not really reachable, so she's not going to get any help from him. She almost gets murdered coming home from church. So
it's true.
I'm worried for her the most. I'm not as worried about Aegon because Larys Strong has sort of tied himself to Aegon as his way up, so he's going to get a lot of assistance, I think, from Larys. I think Aemond was stupid to call him a toad in this episode because he has a lot to offer. Despite, yes, he is a sycophant, he's a bootlicker, but he is really effective at what he does, as we've seen throughout the show.
Totally.
And so Aemon's created an enemy for himself, and even though Larys is just trying to survive by glomming on to Aegon at this point, I think it's going to be to Aegon's benefit.
That's a good point. I think I had the same initial read that you did, Tristan, about Alicent, but in the name of playing my cards close to my chest and not accidentally overexposing anything, I'm going to answer with something kind of at a left field because the people I was kind of worried about or found myself thinking about in this episode were the dragons. So there's sort of a duality I want to unpack and get your guys' thoughts on here. In the last episode, we had a character refer to the dragons as meat, and in this episode, we have a character refer to the dragons as gods. So at this point in the story, who do you think is right?
That's hard. I mean, and both those opinions are they both from the Smallfolk? Who calls them gods in this episode?
Yeah, no, it's Stefan Darkling before he gets roasted.
Okay, so not Smallfolk, but like not royalty either, but still nobility. And he, I guess, firsthand gets to experience them
the wrath of God.
I mean, in terms of like power, I think gods is way more accurate. I mean, the only reason that Meleys is able to be killed and then be called meat is because another dragon kills her. It's not like somebody shoots it down with an iron arrow, whatever the fuck that thing is called that they use later on to like
in The Hobbit,
to very easily kill Dany's dragons. By the way, I will never get over that. Shut up.
Spoiler.
Duh. But so like I think gods is much more accurate. I think that the Greens move, or Kristen Cole's move to try to show Meleys's decapitated head as like a demonstration of their power was so weird because it was just like them like, hey, look at how actually our nuclear weapons that we're so proud of are just meat and they're not anything. And it's weird. Like, I know they were trying to show like, hey, we were able to take down a dragon, but it just kind of backfired. And as we saw in the show, the Smallfolk didn't respond very well to that, and they were kind of confused and nobody was happy about it. So I think gods is still a much more accurate way to describe.
You see, I love that you've come out on that side because I could not disagree more.
Incredible. So glad to hear it.
Because so the whole gods thing is just part of the Targaryen propaganda that Aegon the Conqueror brought over whenever he, conquered everything,
for sure. Yeah.
Right? That's whenever everybody was like, holy shit, we can't win against a dragon. And for the normal person, like, absolutely not. You're it's going to kill you. You're going to be fried alive. It's okay. But now that we've seen 2 dragons fight, and we know that one of them can kill the other one, right? They can be killed. They're not different than attack dogs who just happen to be able to breathe fire, right? They're much more effective, but they're mortal, right? And so ultimately they're just another pawn in the war. They're not these undying, immortal beings that can move mountains and everything. They're subject to the same kind of human faults, like quirks of an animal, right? Sometimes your dog sniffs and eats another dog's shit. You don't want it to do that, right? Sometimes your giant dragon Vhagar eats your cousin's dragon with your cousin on it, even though that's not what you intended to do, right? They have minds of their own, right? They can't totally be controlled. They're susceptible to human error in strategy, right? You see Aegon drunkenly drive to battle and ultimately get his dragon killed as a result of his stupidity. Don't drink and drive, Targaryens. That's a really good poster child for that.
Heard it here first.
This is actually just one of those like real life scenes that the police set up when they come and do like presentations at school.
And that's why.
And that's why you shouldn't.
Tristan, can you imagine the size of Vhagar's shits?
Oh my God.
Titanic.
Oh no. Here,
at least Kristen Cole sized.
Oh jeez. Let me amend. My answer is really about how I think the people in Westeros, especially the Smallfolk, but beyond them as well, are viewing the dragons. I think that the way that things have gone, the propaganda that's been pushed out has made the dragons seem like gods to the people. I think you're right. That was Aegon the Conqueror's initial propaganda. And I think after everything that's happened and where we are currently right now, that is how they're being presented, at least for now. It is interesting to track how that changes over time. And that's, I think, one of the like preoccupations of this story in the book. And I think in the show as well, is wondering how they sit with everybody and how they're viewed. Because I think even like the scene with Adam where Sea Smoke chooses Adam.
Yeah, come on.
That feels
So
very
cool.
like divine.
All right.
Okay, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, thanks for asking, Maggie. I'm so glad that you guys disagreed with this point, because my answer is that I think you're both right. And I think the episode is purposely kind of pushing us in both of those directions. And here's the part I was excited to read out. Stefan Darklin is turned into meat, and Adam is divinely chosen.
Oh, great. Love
So I
it.
think we see both options.
Sure. That's fun. I like that.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was feeling
No,
the
I interrupted
pang
you.
of misery.
I could see the eagerness and the pain in your eyes
I
as
love
I was
when
talking.
a point comes together. I like when points come
It
together.
is very nice. No, but
So-
it's fun to watch that kind of swing set situation.
To keep that conversation alive,
Yeah.
16 episodes into a series about dragons, I think it keeps them interesting. They don't feel like cheat codes on the battlefield, even though they are so devastating.
I do also like that the dragons seem to matter way more this season than they did season 1.
Sure.
Season 1, it was like they're all talking about, oh, this show is full of dragons, and I was like, where are the dragons?
There wasn't
Like,
even a war.
Sometimes Caraxes is there just like kind of looking in the camera. Like here, we actually get to see the dragons on screen, but also they are mattering to the plot and the themes of the show. So I do like that.
So we've got 2 zoom-in sections. I want to take a closer look at 2 characters here. We're done with the zoom out. Now we get to zoom in. And first up is Daemon. I'm very sorry, but we do not have another installment of Incest Watch this week.
So tragic.
Wah, wah.
We were all hoping for it.
Really disappointed that he and Viserys didn't get it on, but that's okay.
They were pretty close.
They were hugging.
They were very physical.
We've seen another scene in this episode where 2 people hug, and then it becomes something more.
That's true. We'll get there too. That's what we're going to close with. But back to Daemon. This is why Matt Smith has first billing during the credits. I think
It's
I
true.
was thinking about comments both of you has said during both seasons of the episodes we've talked about on this show, with your critiques of, dear God, why don't we get to see more of Daemon? Matt Smith is great. Why don't we get to see him do these things that I believe he's capable of? And finally, again, thanks to Eileen Smith, who gave Viserys something so incredible in season 1, finally, Daemon was given something real to work with. And it really just feeds my ongoing, indisputable theory that all great actors just want to do Shakespeare, because Matt Smith is soaring with Shakespeare. It's not just the haunted dreams. It's not just the drama around the throne. It's the hunch. It's the writhing. It's him doing the Richard III stumbling through Harrenhal.
Yeah. This was Hamlet and Yorick.
Yes, yes. And he's finally given that same depth and gravitas and drama as Viserys. He's given the same meat on the bone to work with that Paddy Considine got in that first season. My point is basically Eileen Shim needs to be given way more of this show because I want more of this Shakespeare in the alchemy of this show. But to turn it to the poll question and open it up to you guys. Yes, we get to take our victory lap. We did get the Viserys stream.
We got two.
Yes, we did. It was 2 victory laps.
Yeah, we were extra, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that we're going to get any more visions from Daemon going forward, or is this it?
Should I say what the audience thinks first?
Yes, and then you guys answer.
So we presented 2 options. It was no, that Viserys was the grand finale, or yes, because Alice Rivers is still around, then we're probably going to get more visions. 46% of our audience says no, they're not going to continue. This is it. But 54% say that yes, they are going to continue.
That's pretty tight.
Yeah, so pretty evenly split. So I think that's interesting. Can you remind me something in the plot, Cam? Does Daemon leave Harrenhal, like actually in this episode?
He gets freaked out, right? He's
Yes.
like, I need some fresh air when after he threatens poor Lord Strong with a knife. I we talk about this usually before the episode, but I love his performance so much. He plays such a good straight man against the Daemon that is losing his mind with these visions.
He's very good.
It strikes such a good tone, and the humor that he brings into those scenes while ostensibly with his life in the balance with this crazy guy. I love it. I love the way that he plays those scenes. But
so good.
anyway, after he does that, Daemon's like, I'm leaving. Again, because this is what he does. And then that's when Alice Rivers confronts him and is like, you need help. You just need allies. You just can't do this on your own.
You just need to go to therapy.
Yes, relax. and so he's like, okay, and then he kind of confides in her. He does the same kind of sit down on a stone that he did whenever he was talking to the Bracken. Or whichever peon he was speaking to before.
Right.
I thought they'd want to survive more. I didn't know they were so willing to die.
That's
Blackwoods.
right.
Yes.
The Blackwoods, yes.
That's right.
So he does that same thing with Alice, but Alice actually gives him advice. He's not just talking to himself, essentially.
Sure.
And then at the end, with a wink, she's like, wait 3 days, then the winds will change. We find out later that it's because she went to go administer aid to Grover Tully.
So good.
And just definitely killed the shit out of that guy. He stepped down and is no longer running for a second term.
Oh, so good. So I think Daemon doesn't actually leave Harrenhal.
Doesn't do anything.
No,
He lets
no.
her. He hangs back, lets the winds change, and she accomplishes the actual event. And then the next time we see Daemon, he's actually waking up from the dream where he is comforting Viserys.
That's right.
Which is something that didn't actually happen. It's like the ghost of Christmas future if the good thing occurred, if he did the right thing. He wakes up from that, then he learns that Grover Tully's dead, and then he breaks. He just starts bawling. And actually, I don't normally prepare the questions, but I had a question about that for you guys.
Ooh, ask the question.
Why is he crying? We haven't seen him do that before on his own. And ostensibly, he just had a good vision, a feel-good vision about going and correcting a wrong that he had done before. Or maybe it's activating a yearning. He wishes he had done that. And maybe he realizes now that he's been behaving really, really poorly and selfishly for years, and that is translated from Viserys onto Rhaenyra. But I wasn't really sure as it happened why he was crying. So why do you guys think he was crying?
I mean, it's subjective, it's just my opinion, but I instantly felt like I knew why he was crying. And to throw an Uno reverse card, I instantly thought of something you said on a previous episode, Tristan, when I was asking about Viserys and who would be the one vision that would break Daemon and complete this storyline. And you said Viserys wouldn't be the one who breaks Daemon. He would be the one who built him back up and restored him. And I think that's why, I mean, I feel like we could do more with this storyline, but as far as the pattern goes of everyone who shows up in these visions we see twice, since we see both of those in this episode, the first one is the wrath, the misery, him being haunted by a figure of his past. But that second one, he's only being kind and compassionate, and he's not being attacked, which you'd think would hurt him more, but he's breaking down, seeing the pain his brother's going through. And I think him getting snapped out of that is his Ebenezer Scrooge moment where he throws open the window. And I think this might build him back and restore his priorities. So I think it's a cry of grief, definitely, but also of relief. He's got his head on straight again. It's the last scene of It's a Wonderful Life. It's not happy tears, but he's settled back into knowing who he is.
I agree with you. I feel like his visions have sort of gone on this trajectory of it starts by it being his fears and guilt, like him seeing dead Jaehaerys and young Rhaenyra blaming him for it. And then it moves into, and like him seeing even like Aegon, who kind of looks like young him and fearing that he will become like Aegon or Aegon will become like him. But then it moves into like him sort of getting to do some like wish fulfillment, but like the dark side of it. So like beheading young Rhaenyra, like kind of living out those like what if like what if I beat her, what if I take the throne. Even last episode he was like in real life like playing out, no, what if I just I'll go to King's Landing and Rhaenyra can join me if she wants to. And then now it's like he's getting the wish fulfillment, but in the good direction of what if I had been a good brother to Viserys? What if I had done the right thing? And I think that's sort of where he's come full circle, like you're saying, Cam, and realizing I know what I need to do now. So I think that, this is the end of the visions, I think.
Maybe next week we'll get some incest to talk about, but I think that's all we have.
We can only hope.
That's all we have.
Fingers crossed.
For Daemon this week. So moving on to the next character that we wanted to do more of a deep dive into, we have Alicent. And I want to open this section. I know we've alluded to her thus far. I want to open with the poll results. And Maggie and I tried to word this one really particularly. Alicent seems to be faltering lately. At this point, what is her ultimate goal? Is it protecting her kids? Is it protecting herself? Or is it bringing peace to the realm?
So in third place from our audience, by a long shot, only 6% of our audience think that she wants to bring peace to the realm. So our girl does not care about others, okay? Similarly, 27% of our audience say that she is trying to protect her kids. 67% say that she is trying to protect herself. I, for one, agree, because I think this episode proves
Really?
Like, she has sort of gone through all of her kids and been like, well, 2 of them are psychopaths. One of those 2 is nearly dead. The third one is kind of a lost cause. And the fourth one, I don't even know. So I think she's really just focusing on herself. She's got no friends at court or in family. I mean, she does try to protect Helaena during the situation, at the Sept. But I think she's really just kind of focusing on protecting yourself going forward. At least that's what I think.
See, I hate that you phrased it that way, Cam, because it's a trap. You know why it's a trap? Because I don't think that she has any goals. I think that is the part of her character arc that we're at right now, is that everything that drove her before, her children, her ambition with the court, to the extent that she really had any. I think she was forced to have that ambition by her father and eventually accepted that, and sort of played into it. But her kids, her role at court, her relationship with Rhaenyra, her role in the war so far, all of that is now off the table. She has absolutely nothing tying her down, and I don't think that she has her North Star anymore.
That's
right?
true.
And I think that's why she searches for the one kind voice that might still be receptive to her, and that's her brother. And we haven't even seen them interact very much, so we don't really know how close they truly are. This is a great scene with them, to where we get to know some of the depth of their relationship. But I get the sense that we wouldn't have seen them do that had she still had all of her other allies and tethers actively engaged with her. I think she falls back on him as a last resort because she's looking for something to give herself meaning and her life meaning and have something to work towards now. That's why she wistfully talks about her youngest son, who we've never seen in the show before. She's like, now she's on to other things. What else can she devote herself to? What can she dream about? What can she put some faith in? I think that we are in the middle of her answering that question for herself. Is she just doing this for survival? There's got to be something more than that. Is she doing it for her kids? Well, certainly not the three in King's Landing. Does she want to save the world? Probably not. Right. I don't know. I haven't gotten the sense that she cares about that too much. I mean, I know that she doesn't want the realm to war. I think that much is clear from her pretty level-headed stances at the small council, but I don't think she thinks that enough for it to be her driving force moving forward now that she's not a part of that council. So I think she's very much in limbo right now.
I totally agree. I think she sort of picks up that emotional freefall that Daemon has seemingly just resolved. You're right, the question was a trap, because I agree with you.
You bastard.
No, but you caught it, and I think you landed sort of where I do too, because I was listening to all of these scenes, and it does feel like she's putting out feelers. She's looking for options. There was a lot of grass is greener on the other side, a road not taken, a lot of what-if scenarios, especially in that conversation with Gwaine, her brother, about how that other kid turned out. I mean, she checks in on all of her kids, basically. Helaena is, as Maggie said, a lost cause. That was empathetic. She's increasingly...
It's not my opinion. I think it's Alicent's
I think
opinion.
It is your opinion. She's increasingly traumatized. Aegon is in general decline, and her relationship with Aemond is quickly declining. But I want to sort of throw a monkey wrench in here, because I'm ignoring everything I know from Fire and Blood. I'm completely forgetting the book and just talking about what I see in the show. I can talk and ignore the spoilers. I felt like through this entire episode, we were setting up Alicent for a big change. And I have a couple sort of possibilities I want to just throw to you guys and see what you make of them. The first is maybe some sort of self-exile where she just fucks off and lives somewhere else and gets out of this rat's nest of King's Landing.
Like goes and like starts like witness protection style,
maybe
like starts
either,
new life.
Like there's one possibility where she goes and tries to raise Daemon, but I think that's a little too pie in the sky. I feel like her just running away is an option, but the other one that I was feeling... As, we saw that meeting with Rhaenyra a few episodes ago.
Right.
We see the relationship that they've had that still feels like maybe, even despite the war, the strongest bond that she has left with anyone. I felt like they were almost laying the track for a heel turn of Alicent joining the Blacks. I don't know. Like, obviously some things would have to fall into place, but what do you guys think of those possibilities?
Well, I could see that. And the reason I said that I think she's focusing on herself now is because, like, Tristan, you're right. She doesn't really have anything guiding her anymore, because throughout this war, like post Viserys' death, the thing that she was focused on, the thing that was motivating her and the thing that she stuck by was, I'm following Viserys' wishes. Viserys told me with his dying breath that he wanted Aegon on the throne, so I am pushing that agenda. I'm doing what my king wants. Because Alicent had a complicated relationship with Viserys. He married her when she was a child, and also her like best friend / kind of love interest at the time, and now totally love interest, was her husband's daughter, and so then she's her stepmom, and that's weird, and like all that stuff. But I think at the end of the day, once she became an adult and she had children, Alicent cared about Viserys both as her husband but also as her king. I think Alicent really does truly believe in like the idea of the sovereign. I think she really respects that office, that position, and I think she really respected Viserys for that and knew that he was overall a pretty good king. And so I think she was trying to honor his wishes. But that conversation with Rhaenyra completely dismantles that and totally breaks her. And at this point, I think last episode and this episode is her searching for new meaning, and she is not finding it anywhere. And so I totally could see, Cam, what you're saying of her deciding, you know what? None of this is working for me here. Nobody is on my side. I don't even have Kristen to like have sex with when I'm sad. Like I got nothing. And so I think I could totally see her defecting to the Blacks and like fighting for a cause, because Alicent loves fighting for a cause. I think that's really important to her, not just like surviving and being happy. She wants to like have something to rally behind. So I could see it for sure.
Indulge me, if you will,
Okay.
in a bit of symbolic thought. All right. So first of all, we find her in the role of Queen Regent, which is, I think, a very fitting role for her right now, because I think that at this point, she's the one character in the show who can go to any space on the board. I think it is very clear to us, at least for purposes of the show, and I haven't read the book, so I have no idea. It's clear to me that she could end up anywhere in Westeros right now, and I would believe it. I would buy it because I think there's foundation for it. But the reason that we got there, or got her to that point, is because Alicent's entire story arc from beginning, well, from the time that she gave Viserys heirs, is one of loss. I like, Cam, the word that you used before, tethers, because we have systematically seen Alicent lose every single one of the tethers that keeps her in King's Landing. First, she lost Viserys. Then she lost Rhaenyra. Then she lost Otto. Then she gave up on Aegon, which is the last thing that she did before he flew off. Then we see Aemond get rid of her, right? So that bond is now broken. Helena has always just sort of been there in the side. There's not really, I don't think that there's enough of a connection there for me to say that that's something that's still holding her and grounding her.
Totally.
She's lost Kristen Cole, had him and lost him. So everything that we've seen happen to her so far has been snipping one of those tethers that she has. And the question in my mind, if you imagine, indulge me again, if you will, a big, giant hot air balloon, right? If the tethers that she was cutting were connected to the weights or the balloon itself, right? Is she freeing herself, or is she condemned as a result, right? Has she cut off the balloon and is going to fall to her death, or has she cut off the weights and can now move about the cabin freely?
Interesting.
I'm falling on the latter. I think that she now has agency, which is something that we haven't seen her have in a very, very long time.
I like that a lot. And we saw her in the first episode. Remember, we talked about this in episode 1 of season 2. She is trying desperately to hold on to and grab onto agency. And that has slowly been slipping away from her. I think that's a really great analogy. What do you think, Cam?
I'm sort of thrown because hot air balloon is literally exactly the metaphor I was thinking of saying when he was introducing
Oh
that
my God,
point.
are you kidding me?
No, I think
That's so funny.
I think this is setting her up for some sort of free fall. I don't think she can go live in the countryside and have a simple life.
Nah. She doesn't
It's-
want that.
No.
No.
So I think
She
it's-
likes power. She likes having a thing. She doesn't want to just like survive.
Right, but she's losing her power. She's losing her purpose and all of those tethers. So I see this as much more, I don't know, Tommen jumping out the window. I feel like she's losing reasons to be here.
I'm with you.
I mean, half the time we see her, it's just her disassociating. I mean, we talked about the silence in the dialogue. Most of Alicent is just looking devastated. And
Right.
Olivia Cook's doing a great
Okay,
job.
so she does that well.
But the character's just taking L after L. And I don't see any situation where she comes out on top again.
Right. So if she did go to the Blacks, like how would that even work?
I don't know.
Like would she be killed on sight? Like I don't know how
I
that
don't
would
think she
even
would
go.
like fight for them. I feel like it would be in the name of some sort of peace, in the same way their conversation in the Sept was.
But she's already admitted that it's too late for peace.
I know, but
Because that's
you
what Rhaenyra
try
was
and try
asking
again.
for, and Alicent said, no, we can't. It's too late. Because she knows it's too late.
But the paradigm has shifted since she did that.
That's true.
Since she said that, at least for Alicent personally. I don't think for the realm. I mean, obviously, it's going to go to war. So Cam, you were talking about introducing a little bit more Shakespeare here. What are they going to do? Is she just going to Ophelia herself?
Did you watch the trailer for next week? Where she's
yes,
sad,
she's
standing
literally
next
very
to a lake?
Ophelia.
walking into the water.
Maggie screamed out Ophelia.
I was
when
like,
that
she's
came
doing
on
an
screen.
Ophelia. What is this?
Yeah. I
I
mean,
think that would
honestly,
fit.
I think you're right. She's wearing a white dress, if I recall, from the preview. Either she's like rebaptizing herself to the Seven or something, or
She does
she's,
love that star
it
necklace.
whenever I saw that, it very much felt like she was just going to walk out into the water and not come back.
Maybe she's also having visions, and that's like from a dream. Maybe it's a cop-out, kind of tease in the trailer.
It would be very funny to do 6 episodes of Daemon dreams and then give Alicent visions before you show one from Helena.
Oh my god, they're just
She's been on the bench for 2 seasons.
They're never going to show Helena's visions. It's so
Cam
funny.
and Maggie, we've established this. We see Helena's visions at the beginning of every single episode.
Oh, that's right, in the tapestry.
One
embroidery.
episode delayed.
That's true.
I
That's
thought you were
very
going to do
true.
your surprise attack.
Yeah,
I thought that was
we've been
the
waiting
moment.
this
You
whole
were
time.
queuing it up.
No,
It'll happen organically.
Yeah,
I
you can't force it.
understand.
And here's the deal. I was driving to work today, and I said to myself, God damn it, I can't do it for this episode because it wasn't even a punchy, memorable bit of dialogue.
Sure.
She literally says something like, "This one won't sing anymore."
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's not as exciting. Yeah,
That's it.
that's her.
It's not even. It's not
that's her whole
prescient.
line.
It's
Nope.
not. It's not impactful.
Nope.
The last thing we wanted to talk about to close out this episode today is the kiss at the end of the episode. So this is Mysaria, the White Worm, and Rhaenyra. And we start from a pep talk, right? Where we're talking about the propaganda being successful, and then there's a pep talk of, yes, Rhaenyra should be more aggressive and more directly involved in the war. And it starts as a hug, and then it lingers, and then we get the kiss. So after queuing that up properly, I guess the questions, I want to just open the floor and play with these ideas. Is this just a moment? Is this the start of a relationship? Is this possibly Rhaenyra thinking about someone else she'd like to kiss? Is this introducing a love triangle when Daemon gets home? What do you guys make of this?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, especially because I learned after the episode that the kiss was not initially written into the script. The hug was, the embrace was, the moment of connection and comfort was there, but the kiss was not written into the script. And so that tells me 2 things, or one of 2 things. Either this is not going to go anywhere and it's just a moment and that's it because the scripts have no plan for any sort of relationship to continue, or 2, that it does happen, like a relationship does occur, but the actual kiss and that inciting incident doesn't happen until later. I'm sort of inclined to think that it's sort of a fleeting moment. I do think that these 2 characters have certainly grown to have affection for and trust for each other. I totally see that. But I really feel like Rhaenyra is thinking about another pretty girl that she would like to kiss. Her name is Alicent. And I think she's also sort of feeling a little bit sad and confused and frustrated by her relationship with Daemon and how that's sort of crumbling and falling apart and she has no control over that. And I think she's feeling really vulnerable and nobody is helping her, nobody is listening to her, nobody is sympathizing with her or trusting her in the way that Mysaria is. And so I think that's where a lot of that comes from. But I don't see this relationship as being one that will last, at least not this part of their relationship. I think that their partnership and like mutual beneficialness and like just the
Benefit?
Yep, thank you.
No,
thank you.
I think it's
beneficent. My God.
Mutual beneficiment, if you'll indulge
if
me.
you indulge me. I think that's going to continue, but I think it's going to mostly stay professional. I think they might just have a couple like moments here and there like that. I don't see it as being a lasting, meaningful relationship between the 2 of them.
I mean, it behooves Mysaria for it to be.
Well, that's true.
I
think Mysaria is taking advantage. She's like, all right, sure, the queen wants to kiss me. That's fine. I'll go with it. Like, yeah, I get it.
No. That's what I mean. Like, to continue to ingratiate herself. I don't get Laris vibes from Mysaria. I'm gonna be really upset if she like turns heel and betrays Rhaenyra.
I'm sorry. She like demands that Rhaenyra pull her dogs out.
Yeah. Fuck.
I'm sorry.
What foul delivery.
Oh, ew.
When you're talking about something so gross, you gotta give it.
Dogs.
My yeah, Maggie's keeping us hip for the younger audience. Y'all talk about them dogs.
The second she gets back from riding her dragon.
Oh no!
Mysaria, my boots.
Oh God, that's awful. I hate that so
Someone
much.
was making a point.
Oh
Tristan
my God.
was. Tristan was making a point. It's going to benefit Mysaria. That's what you were saying.
We're off the wagon now. Yeah, no. Mysaria has to keep her close still. I don't get Larys vibes from her. I don't feel like she's going to betray her the way that somebody like Lara Strong would. I don't know that this scene has any more meaning than Rhaenyra is really enjoying having somebody who is a true collaborator, who truly seems to have faith in what she represents. I mean, the speech that Mysaria gave her about why she calls Rhaenyra steadfast. She reminds Rhaenyra of the power that she has and the person that she was in season 1, right? And we see, Rhaenyra's already sort of wavering over her efficacy as a leader and her role as, as a leader and being forced to sort of stay behind the lines a little bit. The front lines, we see her smack the crap out of her one advisor and tell him literally, it's my fault. I've forgotten to make you fear me. And then she has the scene with the sword. She's trying to like regain a bit of that purpose. And Mysaria comes along at just the exact right time after she's, had yet another one of her Kingsguard absolutely thrown away before any real war starts happening.
True.
To help her remember the sort of heroic and nature and tenacity that she showed and exhibited all through the time that we got to spend with her as a kid, up until when she, decided to sit the throne at what is the rock called? Dragonstone. There you go.
What's the rock called?
We were all searching.
Yeah.
I could
The
hear our
dragon
brains
place.
humming.
Just
You can tell we're nearing the end of this episode.
Yeah.
But so she comes along at the exact right time to give her this pep talk, and she's like, it's sort of a thank you. It's sort of, she gets caught up, I think, in the passion of this, and is like, this is how she knows to sort of solidify those bonds with somebody who she wants to feel even closer to, because she's getting so much in that moment. And it's what inspires her to go chase after sea smoke at the end of the episode.
It's totally true.
This reminder that you are who you are. Don't like falter in how you view yourself. So she's got a lot of momentum going into the next episode as a result of this interaction with Mysaria.
I think that's totally true. And I like that this sort of sets up, like what you're doing here, Tristan, is sort of setting up like a mirroring and an inverse between Alicent and Rhaenyra again, where we talk, if here Rhaenyra is like gaining agency, gaining control, like literally and metaphorically, Alicent is totally losing it. And that's sort of the different positions those two are in. Cam, what did you make of this interaction?
It reminded me of one of the last Game of Thrones episodes we did. We do those every Friday, chapter by chapter, going through the book. And we just did a Ned chapter from the first book that was 6 pages. And it had, there was 45 minutes of discussion on those 6 pages. And honestly, I could do multiple episodes on that one chapter. And in that discussion, we talked a lot about the balance of text and subtext. And I thought what this scene was doing for television, which is a visual medium, was visualizing some of that subtext. Because I'm brought back to, Tristan, the way you and I were talking about Alicent's future. I feel like showing Rhaenyra kiss a girl officially, explicitly canonizes the romantic overtures that we've seen between Rhaenyra and Alicent for 2 full seasons now.
Absolutely.
But in this moment where Alicent is so precarious, it feels like another possible future being laid out in front of her. I don't know. If we're saying Alicent might fuck off and end up somewhere else, this could be the somewhere else, and now we see there's somewhere she could land. I don't know.
She gets there, Rhaenyra's, I'm thinking of you the whole time. Like, I think that's what it's going to be.
That's
What, just cast Mysaria aside?
Yeah, like, oh, thanks. I mean, the same way that Kristen has sort of been cast aside or cast himself aside. Like, they're not in quite the same position there. But I could see that.
I found myself, obviously thinking about Alicent during this, but in a more practical sense because of the precarity of where that character is right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to choose not to address that you just said precarity.
Is that not a word?
I don't think so. I think it's
I feel like you guys both committed cardinal sins of English.
Is that not a word?
I don't think so. Drop it in the comments below. Is precarity a word?
You said it with enough confidence
You
to
did.
where I'd believe it.
Thank you. Precariousness felt stupid.
But I think...
Well, English is a stupid language. We can all agree there.
I think precariousness is a word.
It
Damn
is.
it.
It definitely is a word. It's fine. No, that's a really... I like thinking about I like that this interaction is less about Rhaenyra and Mysaria and is really more about Rhaenyra and Alicent, as every interaction
is a word. The state of being precarious or uncertain, precarity.
Well, I'm so sorry.
Only Maggie's committed the cardinal
It's
sin.
just me. I'm the only stupid one.
Loser.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm really happy that this
Okay,
episode...
I'm sitting in my ivory tower not having made up a word or brought one from the ether and the annals of English history.
The day will come, don't you worry. I'm glad that this episode was so good.
Me too.
I'm hopeful going forward. Is there anything else that either of y'all wanted to touch on or address before?
No, that's it.
Cool.
I think we did this one good. If it goes, it should go without saying. But this is right up there. I was very much enjoying myself this entire episode. The momentum, the camera shifts that we got, the characters that we got to spend time with, the dialogue that was said.
Ooh.
It was all just such a wonderful, engaging ride. That this is the height the rest of the season and the rest of the show in subsequent seasons should aspire to.
I agree. We can only hope that we continue to maintain this quality. Sad that we've had so much up and down, but I'm hopeful as always. I'm hopeful going forward. So this was a lot of fun.
And we'll be right back here next Tuesday to discuss the next House of the Dragon episode. But in the meantime, of course, we'll be back on Friday to talk about the next Game of Thrones chapter. We go chapter by chapter through the whole book, like we've done for all of the Lord of the Rings books and all of the Witcher books.
It's very fun. Tristan's not there, so it's only made up words the entire conversation.
And of course, if you want even more episodes from us, we have bonus episodes over on Patreon. The past 3 months, we have done one every single Sunday. So
we did like a special not season, a special series on Fire and Blood,
going through the source material for
plus
House
some
of the
other
Dragon.
Stuff.
We just did 2 Spider-Man episodes, one going through the Tobey Maguire movies, one going through the Tom Holland movies. And last week, as a special mid-week, we had to do an emergency episode. We talked about the new horror sensation, Longlegs. And then 2 days later, I did a follow-up because I had more Faustus ideas. So
y'all really loved that one. Yeah, thank you. And those are not a Patreon. The Longlegs episodes are just one of our regular episodes.
Yeah, so. Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for making these discussions possible. And we will see you in just a few days with a brand new episode.